In today's video, we're going to build a fully functional Uber Eats style food delivery app using a brand new tool from OpenAI called Agent Builder. Instead of the usual drag and drop screen by screen approach, we're going to let an AI agent handle things like restaurant search, cart updates, checkout, and order tracking just from conversations with the user. Now, I've built plenty of these apps before using traditional no-code builders like Flutterflow, and those workflows are still great, but today I want to show you a completely different way of thinking about app development, designing the logic and tools for an AI agent, and letting Agent Builder orchestrate the whole experience for us. First, let's talk about the main difference between building apps the traditional way and using something like Agent Builder. When you're used to tools like Flutterflow, you're basically hand authoring all the logic. Every screen, every action, every conditional flow is something you wire up yourself. With Agent Builder, that flips. The logic you'd normally code step by step is instead codified inside the agent as goals, tools, and rules. And then the agent figures out how to execute it in real time. So I can take the behavior I want my app to have, describe it, and structure it once inside the agent, and then let Agent Builder handle the decisions, the branching, and the workflows for me. It's a genuine paradigm shift in how we build apps. Instead of building fixed flows for users to click through, we design smart agents that can reason, act, and adapt. In terms of building this app, this involves three main steps. The first step is to create the backend. The second step is to create the agent builder workflow. And finally, for the last step, you want to create the actual UI front-end app that the user will interact with. Now, the first thing that we want to do is we want to go ahead and create a Supabase project for our app. So here I am inside of my Supabase account, and I'm going to go ahead and create a brand new project here, okay? And so for the project name, I'm just going to call it Uber Eats Clone. Password, we can just fill anything out, suggest, use it, and we're going to go ahead and create a new project here. Now, once I have this project created, I need to go ahead and enable user authentication so that users can log in and we can associate different records in our database for each of the users. So I'm going to come back here and I'm going to click on authentication and I'm going to add a user, right? I'm going to create a new user. I'm just going to say this is going to be James at james.com. And in fact, let's go ahead and create two more users, okay? All right, so now we have three users in our database, and these users are automatically confirmed, okay? So they don't need to confirm or anything like that. We can start logging in as these users. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into my table editor here, and we can now create the tables. But before we do that, I want to quickly show you, if you jump into Auth over here, and you scroll down to users, you will see these users in the database, okay? This is a special table. This is a read-only table. You cannot modify it. You cannot do anything. But this is a table that's going to be storing your users, okay? So now we can go back to this public auth, and you're going to be seeing your tables here when you create them, okay? And so I went ahead and I prepared the list of tables that we're going to be creating. And instead of creating these tables manually, we are going to be creating them using AI, okay? And so there's a couple of ways of doing it. You can simply copy this list and you can click here on this AI assistant here, and here you can simply do it. Now, you're kind of limited here, right? If you want to use GPT-5, you need to upgrade, but you can use GPT-5 Mini. Now, GPT-5 Mini is good most of the time, but I still like to use GPT-5 because it works a lot better. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my own GPT client to do all of this and then paste the data back here. All right, so I finished creating the table schema, and now all I need to do is paste it back in here. So we're going to click on the SQL editor here, and here's everything that I pasted, right? We have all our tables, and it also suggested a couple of more: driver locations and order status history, okay? So we're going to go ahead and execute all of this here. And our tables are created here. As you can see, success, no rows returned, okay? And so now we can kind of click around and we can see that we have the tables. Now, the only issue right now is that we don't have any data. And so what I'd like to do at this point is I'd like to create some sample data. So at least when we start building the app, something is going to show up without needing to have real users to sign up. And so that's what I'm going to go ahead and do next. Okay, so now with the SQL statements generated, we need to input it into this database here. I'm going to go to my SQL editor, and delete all this, and I'm going to paste all this. And I'm going to go ahead and run success, no rows returned, okay? And so now if I go back to my tables over here, and let's say I go into carts, I have a cart here, I have cart items, I have menu items, I have everything that I need. I even have drivers here, I have order history, I have everything that I need to display in my app, right? So if I go into orders over here, I should have some orders here, on the way, preparing, pending, etc., okay? And so at this point, we have not only our tables, our schema, but we also have semantically related sample data, which is going to be very, very useful when we start to build the app, build the UI, and try to display and manage that data in some way, shape, or form. Okay, so now that we have the database all set up, the next thing that we need to do is build the actual workflow that's going to be doing all the logic and also interacting with the database, okay? So here I am inside of Agent Builder, and to get here, what you need to do is you need to get to your dashboard, your OpenAI dashboard. Once you're on your dashboard, it's one of the options here on the left-hand side, this Agent Builder. And as you can see, I have a bunch of workflows here that I've been experimenting with, trying different things. And by the way, if you are interested in having a in-depth knowledge of Agent Builder, check out the video that you're going to be seeing in the corner of your screen, the left corner or the right corner. And that's going to give you a really kind of detailed, a comprehensive breakdown of how Agent Builder works. And so next, what we want to do is we want to click here. We want to create a new workflow. And on this screen, we see the start and we see the agent. Now, Agent Builder is all about agents, right? So what is an agent? An agent is essentially packaged logic, right? An agent is supposed to be doing something specific, whether it's finding restaurants, recommending restaurants, doing a checkout, classifying information, you name it. It's where you package a certain logic that does something specific, okay? Now, here we have a start, we have a my agent, and the idea here right now, what we want to do is we want to create several agents that do several things. And more specifically, I have here a list of different agents that we need to create. So we have 7 agent nodes, we have a router that's going to figure out what the user wants, and based on that, it's going to send them to one of these nodes, okay? So we have a restaurant search, this is finding food, finding a restaurant. We have cart management, so things like adding, removing, looking at your cart. We have the checkout flow, and this is where the user can look at their main cart and then actually pay. And here we have a profile agent. This is where the user can manage their information, add or change their address, stuff having to do with themselves. And finally, we have a support agent, and this is your customer support agent. Things like didn't get my order, I got the wrong order, I was overcharged, I was this, that. That's managed by different agents. So as you can see, we're breaking down the different domains, the different logic pieces into different agents, okay? And that is exactly what you want to be doing. You do not want to have one agent that does everything. It's a lot better to break it down, okay? And so the first thing that we want to do is we want to build an agent that does this request routing, okay? Now, you have a couple of options when it comes to that. You can do it inside a regular agent, or you can use this classifying node. This is a relatively new node. It wasn't there from the beginning, but this is a really nice way to classify and to route different things that the user wants to different agents. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and delete this, and I'm going to use this classifying here. I'm going to place that. I'm going to connect the two. And then once I click it, I can configure it, right? So the input is text. The user just says something. And the job of this classifying agent is essentially a classifier to figure out what the user wants. Now, first, we need to define the categories. So looking at this, we have restaurant search, food, cart, checkout, order, info, and then support. So let's go ahead and do that. So first is food. Okay, next is cart. Just gonna make it really, really simple. Checkout. We have order track, order tracking, and then we have profile, and we also have support agent. Just support. Okay, very, very simple here. Now, next you have the model that you can select. This is fine, but you can also give it examples, right? So it says here, add a few shot example to guide the classifier. So we can give it a couple of examples just so that it improves its performance. Okay, so for instance, the user asks, where can I find, I want sushi near me. Okay, so that's obviously food. Or the user says, find me a Chinese restaurant that serves wonton soup. That's obviously food as well. And one more example could be something like add this menu item to the shopping cart. And that's obviously cart. Okay, so I'm gonna stop here. You can give it more examples, but I think this is fine. And besides, we'll test it out and we'll see if it's working as expected. Okay, now the next thing that you want to do is you want to start providing the actual agents that are going to be doing the heavy lifting. Okay, so for instance, user wants food. Well, we need an agent to kind of manage that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and place an agent here, and I'm going to connect them, and I'm going to label this agent. You always want to be labeling the agents, okay, because it's just going to make things a lot easier to see what's happening. So this is our food manager, okay, food agent, in fact. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a prompt, and instead of writing this prompt on my own, I'm going to have it generate the prompt. So I'm going to say, your job is to manage users' queries with respect to food information or restaurant information, and respond appropriately. Okay, so if I click here, that's going to go ahead and create a prompt for us. And that is a lot better than writing your own prompt, because it knows how to create just the right kind of prompt there. Now, once we have one of these agents, we have something here ready, we can test out the workflow. Okay, and we do that by clicking here. And here we can preview the agent. Okay, so for instance, let's say I want to ask it about food. Find me a sushi restaurant. When we execute this, you're going to be seeing things moving around. So it's going to classify it. It classified it as food. And now it's coming over here. Now it's telling me I can't help with that, but I need to know your location, etc., etc. And that's absolutely fine, because right now it doesn't have a list of restaurants because we haven't connected it to our database just yet. But the objective here is to see if it's classifying it. Now, if I type something like add this item to my shopping cart, it needs to route through this option here, shopping cart. So let's see if that works. And it's selected cart. Okay, and we can keep testing, but I feel that it's gonna work really well for our use case. Okay, and so now I'm gonna come back to our designer, and I am going to give it access to our Supabase database. So that way it can actually give us the data that we're looking for, the data that we have stored in our Supabase. And so the way that you do it is you click here on your tools, and you can provide the tool. So what is a tool? A tool is essentially giving the model access to some external app, data source, a tool, whatever you want to call it, that's not here. And that is exactly what we want to do, because remember, we have a Supabase database here that has the tables that, with the data that we want to make available in our app, right? So we have, restaurants, we have restaurant categories, we have menu items, we have everything. And we don't want the model to go out to the web and start searching random stuff. We wanted to access the database. And so I'm going to click here, and I'm going to select MCP server. Okay, MCP is a protocol that stands for Model Context Protocol. And in really layman's terms, it's a way to connect to other data, other sources, other information. So by default, right, with this selected, you have all of these. If you click here, you have just the OpenAIs, and then you have other developers here. Now, unfortunately, Supabase is not one of them here. It may be by the time you watch this video, but right now it is not. So what we want to do is we want to click here and we want to add a manual configuration. Okay, so we need the URL, we need a label, description is optional, and we also need an authentication. So where do we get all this? Well, what you want to do is you want to Google for Supabase MCP, okay? Supabase MCP server. And when you do that, you're going to see this page as the first result. This is the, authoritative page that will, tell you exactly how to connect it. So once you're on this page, you're going to be logged into your accounts. As you can see, I have dashboard here. So I'm automatically logged in. So this page knows who I am. It knows what my Supabase projects are. And so I want to scroll down, I want to select my project. So I'm going to select this project here. And then I'm just going to leave all the other options as is. So I'm going to copy this here. And I'm going to go back to my agent builder. I'm going to paste this here. I'm going to give this MCP. Description is optional, but I do need an access token. Okay. So I'm going to go back to my Supabase. I'm going to click here on my account preferences, access tokens, and I'm going to create a new access token. I'm just going to say MCP. I'm going to generate this token, and I have it here. Now, this token allows anybody who has access to this token to pretty much manage your Supabase instance, okay? So be very, very careful with these tokens. I'm going to copy it, come back over here and paste it, okay? I'm going to click on connect, and now it's going to pull all of this information, okay? And more specifically, what it does is that it gets a list of tools that this model has access to, that this Supabase server, this thing exposes on behalf of my instance. Okay, so at this point we have search docs, list tables. We have a lot of things that it can do. The first thing that you want to do before you get here is you want to check for approval. Now you have a couple of options here. Always require, never require, or configured. I just do never because it's a lot easier. But depending on your specific use case, you may want to fine tune this. So with this set to never, the next thing you want to do is, this is a recommended step, but this is something that I like to do. I want to deselect all the tools that are not relevant to my use case. So search docs is not relevant. We're going to deselect that. List tables is relevant. List extensions is not. List migrations is not. This is not. This is relevant. And then a lot of these are not relevant. So I'm going to go ahead and deselect them. Okay, because we're not doing edge functions. We're not doing any of this. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and deselect that. And so right now, all I have left is list tables and execute SQL. And this is enough for what I'm trying to do because I'm trying to get data. That's it. I'm not trying to, deploy edge functions or any of these things. So I'm going to say add. And now we have this MCP added. Okay, but we're not done yet. We need to tell the model in the prompt to make sure that it consults with this for any query, right? Because anything that we send in terms of food needs to go through this first. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to say, ensure that the model, ensure that you consult with MCP Supabase connection first before doing anything else or before responding to the user. Okay, I'm going to do an update, and that should modify the prompt to ensure that it always goes through this first, because if it doesn't, it's just not going to get the right data. Okay, this is very, very important. Okay, so now this is the new prompt. And if you scroll up, it says here, consult the MCP Supabase connection with relevant details from the user query before conducting any reasoning or formulating a response. Super, super important. Okay, we're going to hit save. And now we can click here and we can ask it a query in regards to food or a restaurant, and it should consult our Supabase database to get the right data. So let's say, find me a sushi restaurant. And I do have one sushi restaurant, and let's see if it's able to do it. Okay, so it classified it correctly, food, And now it needs to do Supabase. I need to access Supabase, and this is what it got, Sushi Express. And this is the exact restaurant that we have. If I go back here, I go into restaurants, we have here Sushi Express. Okay? If I ask it something about pizza, find me a pizza restaurant, it should find a pizza restaurant because we do have a pizza restaurant. So again, food, it's going to do that. And it got Mamma Mia Pizza. So if I go back here, we have Mamma Mia Pizza. Okay, I have 3 restaurants, and one of them is sushi, one is Mamma Mia, and then we have Green Bowl Kitchen, healthy bowls, salads, and vegan plates. All right. Now, let's try something else. Let's say I want to find a pizza dish. Find me a pizza dish from the menu. Okay, let's see if it's able to do that. We do have one pizza dish. And this is what it found, margarita pizza, which is 15. Okay, we go back here. We go into menu items. We have margarita pizza, which is 15. Okay, so let's try find me a sushi dish from the menu. Okay, and it should find the sushi dish. And there it is. Salmon sushi, salmon avocado roll, $12.50. We go back here. We have this dish right here, which is perfect. So this works as expected. And another thing that you can do is if you're having any issues, it's not finding the right data, it's not telling you what you wanted to tell you, you can click on this and you can see the whole flow, the whole debug flow. So you can scroll down, and guess what? This is the MCP call, and it's doing this query that essentially joining a bunch of tables and is getting this result from the available menus, etc., etc. So as you can see, it's working as expected. Everything works, but if something is not working, you can see where the issue is. You can see where maybe it's the query, maybe it's this, maybe it's not, going through the MCP layer. You'll be able to see everything. So this one works. Next, let's talk about the cart. Okay, let's create another agent that does cart management. So I'm going to call this cart agent, and we're going to have it manage the cart. So I'm going to create a prompt. Your job is to manage the cart, the shopping cart state. So add, remove, display. Okay, and I'm going to hit create. And we have various tables in the database. So things like carts and cart items that it can store this data in the database for the user so that it's persisted. Okay, so manage the shopping cart state. If we expand this is kind of what it has. Okay, for each request, reason, step by step, etc., etc. Let's go ahead and connect it. Now, there's one more thing that we need to do when we're dealing with this shopping carts here. We also need to provide an MCP server, okay? Because we're also connecting to a database. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to add an MCP server. I'm going to do this. And I'm going to go back here. I'm going to copy this, come back here, and I'm going to just say MCP and my token. I'm going to create a new token. And of course, you can reuse the same token. It's just I closed it. But if we leave it like this, we can reuse it. Go back here and paste it here. I'm going to say connect. And I'm going to do the same thing as before. I'm just going to say never. I'm going to deselect it except for list tables and execute SQL. And I'm going to say add. Okay. And I'm going to modify the prompt. Okay. Ensure that you consult with MCP Supabase connection before responding to the user, before doing anything. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and update that. Okay, and so there we have it. If we open that up, you can see, but you must always consult. And so at this point, I can click here to preview my agent, and I can start adding stuff or removing stuff from the shopping cart. So for instance, I can say something like, find me a sushi menu item from a sushi restaurant, something like that. Okay, so it needs to query the database, get the item, and it found it. Here's the item. And now what we can do is we can say something like add this item to my shopping cart. So now it's going to go through this. And so it's saying then I attempted to add, etc., etc. The inserted return no rows. There's currently no active cart. queried the cart again and confirmed it's still empty due to the missing the item could not be added. Well, there is an issue right now, is that unlike with food, searching for restaurants or searching for food, for cart stuff, the user needs to be logged in, right? So if we go over here and we go into cart items, you see it has a customer ID in there, right? And if you're not logged in, you can't really add stuff to cart, right? It's gonna be kind of undefined behavior. It's not gonna work, right? You don't know what the model is gonna do. And so what we need to do is we need to have the user authenticate first into the app. This is an authenticated app. The user needs to be logged in. And that is something that I'm going to show you how to do a little bit later. But right now, what we're going to do is we're going to come back here over here, and I'm going to modify this these instructions here to force the agent to only focus on one user. So I'm going to go to this customer ID. So if I open this table, I'm going to go and I'm going to say, well, just assume I am this user right now. Later on, it's going to be set dynamically. But right now, I'm just going to get it to assume. And so I'm going to come over here and I'm going to say that the user, I assume user ID equals to this, right? I think it's user ID. And that's going to modify the prompt. It's going to hard code the user in there. And now it should be defined behavior. Okay. So now if you open this up, we have assume the user is for all actions and consultations. Okay. All right. So now what we can do is we can actually preview the workflow and see what's happening. Okay. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's say I want to find a sushi restaurant. Find me a sushi restaurant. Okay. Now find me a dish. Okay. Now what we can do is we can add this dish to my shopping cart. So this is what we have. So now if we go to our database, we can go into carts and we can see that we have a shopping cart, okay, just one shopping cart. And we have the cart item, which is that sushi, right? Menu item ID. If we go over here, it should be that sushi. Yeah, the roll, okay? And we can do the same thing for other items, right? We can go back here and we can say, find me a pizza from a pizza restaurant. Okay, it found the pizza, add it to my shopping cart. Okay, so now let's go ahead and look at our database. And we have two items now. And in fact, it looks like it created a new shopping cart, which it shouldn't really do because it should be the same shopping cart. I should only have one active at the same time. So that is something that we need to tell the prompt to do. But in any case, it created a new shopping cart and it added it to this item here. Okay. So that is something that we need to tell the model, and I'm going to do that a little bit later. But in any case, it works exactly what we want. It does the logic, it does the database logic, it figures out where the shopping cart is, and it figures out how to add it, how to remove it, stuff like that. Okay? And so this part is done. Let's go back and let's go ahead and add something to the prompt. Ensure that at all times there's only one shopping cart active. Ensure that only one shopping cart is active at any time. If there's no shopping cart for the user, create one. Okay, so something like this. And that should hopefully work. That should hopefully get it to be a lot more robust and to know what to do in different situations. Okay, so now that is in the prompt. Okay, and we'll test it out a little bit later. The next thing that I want to work on is the checkout flow, okay? And the checkout flow is going to be the part where the customer actually purchases something, right? They're going to see the shopping cart and they can decide to actually purchase it. And we're going to be using Stripe to provision that, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and drag this. I'm going to connect this here, and I'm going to say this is my checkout agent. And here, what we want to do is, well, we can set up a prompt, but I know I know it's going to be using Stripe. So I'm going to click here. I'm going to say MCP server, and I'm going to go ahead and find Stripe. And we have Stripe right here. And all it needs is a secret key. Okay, so I'm going to go to my Stripe account. So here I am in my test account, and I'm going to click on copy my secret key, paste it in here, and hit connect. And you're back on your familiar screen. Now, because I'm using a test environment, I'm fine with never. And here you need to decide what kind of tools to allow the system to have. So I'm going to deselect Stripe Docs, and I'm going to leave most of these on, except I'm going to remove subscription stuff because we're not doing subscriptions, we're not doing coupons, we're not doing disputes, and I'm just going to leave the rest of these on. I think it should be fine. Okay, I'm going to hit add. So now we have a Stripe. Okay, and so we have all of these tools, remember, that allow us to create a customer, to create a product, to create a payment link, to get an invoice, to do all of these cool things that the model will hopefully figure out how to achieve all that. Okay, and so now what we want to do is we want to give it a prompt. You are in charge of creating of the checkout process using Stripe MCP. Always confirm by displaying their shopping cart info before initiating a checkout. And the shopping cart resides in our database. And so we're going to say using the MCP Supabase connection. So we're going to go ahead and create that. And I'm also going to add Supabase here, right? Because we need to make sure that it pulls up their information, right? Because if they're adding to the shopping cart, this agent might not, have information about everything that they have added so far. Okay, so we're going to add this here. We are going to do the same thing and the access token. And I'm going to deselect this list tables, execute SQL. That is all I want, and never. Hit add. Okay, so now we have that, and I want to make sure that it has the right data, right? So this is Stripe Supabase connection. Okay, so you should know. Let's go ahead and change that. Supabase MCP. Okay, so something like this. Okay, so hopefully it will know that it needs to check with this before doing this. And we also need to obviously tell it who the user is, right? So remember, we have this user ID here in the cart. So we need to do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and come over here and paste that. So now let's go ahead and see if this works. We're going to click this. And we're going to say, display my shopping cart to see if we have items in the shopping cart. Okay, so we have 2 active carts. Okay, and that is the issue. So it probably merged them. Let's see, I requeried the unified cart. Okay, so it basically merged my carts, did it? Yeah, it merged the carts. That's nice. Because of that new instruction, right? Well, we have this cart here. But okay, so it made it inactive. Perfect. That's exactly what we want. So we don't need to do anything. We can even delete it. Or in fact, we can just leave it. Doesn't matter. It's inactive. So we have 2 items in the shopping cart. Menu item ID 1, menu item ID 2. Okay. And that is this thing, margarita pizza and this avocado roll. Okay. And so now let's go ahead and do a checkout. Okay. Now we hit this agent. Okay, so step 1, shopping cart review. It displays all of this and it gives me a confirmation, which is perfect, right? Because I don't want to pay. I don't want it to charge me without doing it. So now user confirmation required. So I'm going to say yes, proceed to checkout. And here's the response, right? Stripe checkout details. We have customer created, order item, subtotal. And if we click here, it has a payment page. Okay. Now it says per month. That is something that we need to fix. But regardless, we have a payment page here that the user can check out with. Okay. And once we check out, it's going to send a message back to our app letting us know that the user has checked out correctly. And this is something that we have to wire together. It's not wired just yet. Our workflow has no way of knowing all this, and that is fine. That is an extra step, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do that a little bit later. But regardless, the main part is done. The user can be charged, and we can have this order provisioned. Next, let's talk about the order tracking piece, okay? And so the idea is once the person purchases, we provision the order, and now they can track the order, okay? And so we're going to come over here. We're going to add a new agent. We're going to call it order status or just status agent or tracking agent since we have this order tracking, okay? And so what do we want it to do? We wanted to, track the order. And we can only have one order active at a time in this model. And so for any user, there's going to be one order that's active at a time. And so what we want to do is we want to give it a prompt so it looks up the order information. But first, we need to tell it our user ID. So I'm going to jump back here. I'm going to go to customers and I'm going to pull it, this user ID here. And I'm going to say your job is to provide order status updates to the user. Assume that the user ID is equal to this. Okay, let's go ahead and generate that. Now, this is not enough. We need to give it access to our database. So we're going to go over here, MCP server, come over here, the URL, copy this, paste this, MCP, access token, paste this, deselect that, and just select this. With tables, execute SQL, never. And so now we can actually test it out. Let's go over here and I can say order status. I'm going to go to our database. Your most recent order, number 2, is currently being prepared for this restaurant. That is exactly correct. It's preparing, right? This person has only one order from this restaurant. It's preparing. So this works. Now let's go ahead and create a profile agent, okay? So I'm going to go over here. And the purpose of the agent is to give user information about themselves, modify their direction, modify their address, modify their email name, etc., what have you, okay? So this is our profile agent. And we're going to give it a hard-coded user ID. And let's go ahead and add an MCP server as well. Paste that in there, MCP, access token. Gonna deselect that, list tables, execute SQL, and never. Okay, that is done. Let's go ahead and test this out. Show profile information. Okay, so now it's displaying all the user information. So let's say I want to change the email. Change the email to bruno@bruno.com. Okay, so now it says Bruno. So if I go back here and I refreshed it, there it is, bruno@bruno.com. Let's go ahead and change the address. Change the address to 100 West Street, New York, New York, 1006. There it is. Come back over here, and we have the new address. Perfect. Excellent. And last but not least, let's go ahead and create the support agent. And this is just general stuff, right? Like, what's your return policy? I got a duplicate order, I'm not happy with it, etc., etc. So that is a very, very different type of agent. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say support agent. And here you may want to paste in your FAQ, frequently asked questions, your terms and conditions, what have you. So I'm just making it super generic, okay? Because it's just, you need specific information here, okay? Okay, so we got that. I'm not even attaching a Supabase or anything like that. So I can say something like that. What's your refund policy? It's going to go over here. Okay, so it's going to ask a bunch of stuff. We're not giving it much data to work with, right? This is something where you need to give in your FAQ, your terms and conditions, what have you, okay? All right, so at this point, we have a fairly functioning workflow, right? We have our classifier. We have all of these agents here that connect to our Supabase, to Stripe, stuff like that to get external data. But right now, what I want to do is I wanted to display information in a much better fashion, right? Because a lot of times it just displays text when it should actually display something that looks a lot nicer. So for instance, for food agent, right, for getting food, menu stuff, restaurant stuff, let's have it display the actual menu in a kind of a nice fashion. So I'm going to change this from text to widget, and I'm going to add a widget. So I'm going to go click on create, and here I have a gallery of different widgets. So for instance, this is a nice widget here for displaying food stuff, purchase complete stuff. This is a nice kind of thing. So let's go ahead and create a brand new widget that displays, let's say food items, okay? Display a menu from a restaurant. And the stuff that we want to display is going to be what? It's going to be, let's see, name, description, and price. Name, description, price. Let's just keep it simple. Name, description, price. Let's say restaurant header, restaurant name, and then menu items. And now let's go ahead and generate this UI component for it. And there we have it. Looks really good. Looks fine to me. I'm going to go ahead and download this. And that is what I have. Okay, so now we have a restaurant menu here. Okay, that is going to display. Same thing for the cart. We're going to do a widget. I'm going to add a widget. We're going to click on create, gallery. And for the cart, I'm just going to use this. Checkout agent, I'm also going to use that. Tracking agent, yeah, you might want to use something cool too. Let's see if there's something interesting. Nothing here, but we can create something, right? Go ahead and create that. Create a status update widget. And what do we want to display? Order items, status, date, purchased, something like that. Okay, click that. And so now let's go ahead and test this out. Let's say something like, give me a status update. Okay, there it is. Order status. That doesn't look 100%, but we can fix that later. How about shopping cart? And this is the shopping cart. Now, I don't know why it's 0 when it should not be 0. It should actually add up. Let me take a look at our shopping cart. There are the cart. This is the active cart, customer ID, cart items. Yeah, we have 2 items, menu ID. Interesting. And there's the price. Okay, interesting why it's like that. Let's go ahead and click over here and let's click on this. Let's see what happened. Scroll down. Got the customer. It got active. It got all of this, but it looked like it did not get the price. Okay, so it needs to get the price. So it just basically made up its own price, because here it's not getting the price of the item. Okay, so we need to make sure that it pulls the price correctly. And what else? Tracking, profile, food stuff. Did we do food yet? No, we didn't do food. Let's do show me the menu from a sushi restaurant. First one you find. Okay, so it doesn't get confused. Okay, there you have it. Sushi Express. Show me a menu from a pizza restaurant. First one you find. Okay, there it is. Looks really good. Looks really, really good. Okay. And so at this point, we have a fairly working kind of agent workflow here that does what we needed to do, but we still need to wire things up, right? Remember, we do not have a way to log in the user, and that is why we are forcing this user ID everywhere. That is something that we need to fix. And another thing that we need to fix is we need to fix the purchase flow. Okay, so when they purchase, right, and this checkout agent, we need to actually provision their order. That is not something that we can do right now, because it needs to, send the order. It needs to post back the order, and we don't have a place to post it back. So that is something that we're going to be fixing in this next part. Now, even though this workflow is working really well and it's doing what we wanted to do, the users are not going to be interacting with this workflow. Okay, they're not going to be, clicking here and, sending messages. This is only to preview it for us as developers, because the users are going to be interacting with a different layer. They're going to be interacting with an app that we're going to be building that in turn interacts with this. And just to show you how everything kind of ties together, I want to show you a diagram that I have created here. Okay, so we have here a browser user interface. Okay, this is a JavaScript app here. And this JavaScript app connects to our workflow, right? This is the workflow here. And it connects to this workflow via something called ChatKit. Okay, ChatKit is OpenAI's framework for building apps that connect to these workflows, right? So as you can see, this workflow layer is actually in the middle. There's a bunch of layers before it, and the users are interacting with this layer here. And below it, we have the tools, right? Because this workflow, right, each agent, each package logic, it can access tools. So like, Supabase, other Supabase, maybe Stripe, maybe something else. And here's our Supabase, and here's here's Supabase Auth, and here's the actual database here, right? So it's kind of like 3 main layers, okay? We have the UI that we're going to be building in just a couple of moments. We're going to be building it next. We have this, which we've finished building. And then we have this kind of backend layer that is where all the data resides. Once you understand all of this, everything is going to make a lot more sense, okay? And so if we go back here, this is really the middle layer. This is this logic main layer here where that does the heavy lifting, but the users never see this, okay? The users are actually going to be seeing a different layer. Now for the actual UI layer, that is something that you have to kind of build out. And there's lots of ways of doing it. You can use JavaScript. You can use another framework. It's really up to you how you want to build it. But regardless of how you build it, you want to make sure that it connects to ChatKit. And so if I Google for ChatKit, I'm going to be on this page here. And this is the main framework that allows you to connect your app to Agent Builder here. And this is also the recommended way because it supports widgets, actions, custom theming, and all of that. So this is a really, really nice integration way of building front-end apps that leverage the workflow that you have built right here. And we're going to be building such an app right now. Now I'm going to be building this web front-end using Codex, which is what I'm using for my app development. And you don't need to use Codex. You can build it from scratch. You can build it using another AI agent like Claude Code, or Gemini, or any of these other ones like Cursor especially. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and run Codex here. And then I'm going to enter this prompt. And this is what the prompt looks like. Okay, so we're going to be building this app over here. And I'm going to go ahead and run this prompt. And this is going to go out and build out this entire app for me. And that's going to connect to this workflow here. And it's going to allow me to do a lot more things than, just this workflow here. For instance, I'll be able to add authentication. I'll be able to do Stripe, listening for their webhooks and all of that. So I can do a lot of things and still leverage this here. So we're going to wait for this to finish building. And then I'm going to show you exactly the kind of app that we have built. And by the way, this entire prompt is going to be available in our amazing Patreon community. So if you're still not a member, definitely check it out. There's a lot of value, a lot of content. And so if you're looking to do no-code apps, this is the community for you. All right, so it ran for 22 minutes. And this is what it got so far. So I'm going to go ahead and ensure that we have all the environmental variables, the envars, which is the API key, Supabase URL, Supabase anon key, etc., etc. So I have my file. I have all the env variables here that we need for the system. And now if we go back here, we need to run it. So I'm going to go ahead and run this, right? Just following the instructions, and let's see what happens. Okay, so we got an error. Let's go ahead and paste this and see if it's able to fix it. Okay, it is done. Let's see if it works. Run that again. Okay, so now it has no errors and it's running now. So let's go ahead and copy this link over here and open it up. And there it is. That's the app. Okay, so I'm logged in already. So I'm going to go ahead and log out. This is the login flow. And this is just Supabase authentication. Okay, so if you go back here and you go into authentication, I have accounts here, right? So I have this account, this account, this account. So I can log in with these accounts that I have created initially. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to log in as James, hit continue, and I'm logged in. Okay, we don't need to save that. So it says failed to load ChatKit. Okay, so that's an issue right there. Let's go ahead and see what the issue is. And let's go ahead and paste that. See if it's able to fix it. Okay, and as it's fixing it, we see that this is now we don't see the error there anymore. Okay, so let's go ahead and refresh this, and let's go ahead and refresh this. The problem is it does not give us a chat screen. Okay, there's no errors, but I'm not getting the chat screen. Okay, let's go ahead and see what's going on. No errors, but not seeing the chat screen. Okay, there it is. Okay, looks like it fixed it. Okay, so it's telling us why. Okay, so now we have this UI, this chat UI that's connected to our workflow, right? So it's connected to that thing right there, okay? And so we can ask it for stuff. So we can say something like, find me a sushi restaurant. And it should find that one sushi restaurant because this should mirror that workflow that we were building and testing. Okay, so it wants me to clarify it. Let's say list all the sushi restaurants. Okay, so there it is. There's the Sushi Express. Okay, so everything is good. there's one thing that we need to fix. So we have this authentication. So if I log out, I don't see anything, right? So that is the right approach. But what we need to do now is we need to make sure that this logged in user is passed to this workflow, okay? Now this workflow is already doing it, right? So if I come back here and I say something like, is the auth state being passed to ChatKit? And it's gonna tell us that it's already passing user ID and the email because that was in the initial prompt, okay? So it says yes, and user ID and email in the state because that was in the initial prompt. And so what we need to do is we need to go back here and we need to create a state variable. Okay, the state variable is going to be a string. It's going to be user ID and email. So I'm going to say user ID and I'm going to say email. Okay, and so what this means now is that when this runs, right, this is this app right here, this top level, it's going to pass it right here. It's going to pass the user ID and email, right? Because it knows it, right? This is the logged in app. It already knows this information. So as you can see, verified user ID and email. And so it's passing it here, right? From the server, it's passing it to the workflow. And so that workflow starts with the user ID and message and email and the message, obviously. But the main state is the user ID and email. Then everything goes through with that state already there. And that is why we have it here, user ID and email, okay? So that is there already. And so now we need to go back and we need to make sure that we're not using the hard-coded users anymore here, right? This should not be there, right? What we need to do is we need to say that the user ID is, guess what? Add context, user ID. It's actually adding it at the bottom. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to go up here. And it's right here. And I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to go back. We don't need it for food agent, but we do need it here. Go ahead and update the prompt so that it changes all occurrences of that hard-coded prompt user ID that we've used before when testing. Okay, so now if you open it up, it's not there anymore, okay? And we have to do the same thing here. And we have to do that here. And we have to do it here. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and deploy this. So now let's go back. And let's type profile. And it should know who is logged in and tell us some information about that user. Okay, so that is the user ID. That is correct. It's gonna, there it is, james@james.com. Everything is correct. Okay, that is the user ID. All right, so let's say I find me a sushi restaurant. And there's the sushi restaurant. As you can see, we have this beautiful kind of table, this UI, and that is because we're using ChatKit. It's able to render all of this, okay? Show me the menu from this restaurant. Okay, and there's the menu. Okay, so let's say add this item to my shopping cart. Okay, and there we have it. It even added tax as well. And so now we have a shopping cart. So now let's go ahead and do a checkout. Okay, so that's our checkout. We have purchase, we have add to cart. I can click purchase, I can do that. These are not wired in yet. User confirmation is required, right? So please confirm. I'm gonna say confirm. And that's going to generate a Stripe payment link for me. And here, once I click on pay now, it generates a link for me. Okay, now it's a little messed up. It's badly formatted, but it is there. And so we need to tell the model to not use this card when we actually generate the link. And this is the payment link that it has generated. Okay, this payment link right here. And so if I copy that, you can see that it has it right here. Okay. And so now once I do the checkout, it's going to send me an event letting me know that that order has been processed, okay? And how do we do that callback? We need to create webhooks, right? So if I could do webhook over here, I can create a webhook that does just that, okay? So I need to basically create a new listener that listens to webhooks, okay? So I'm going to add a destination. Here I can ask my AI agent, what kind of webhooks do I need to be listening? For provisioning orders in Stripe and listening for their completion, what events from Stripe should I be listening for? Okay, and it's telling me this is what I should be listening for, okay? Payment capture, save to provision. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So in short, payment succeeded. I'm going to go ahead and look for this one. And I need to have Or when you create the intent via checkout, let's do that as well. And then it should be processing and failed. Do that. There's processing and then payment intent failed. That one. Okay. And so now I have 4 events that I'm listening. Okay. And I'm going to do a webhook endpoint. I can also have Amazon Event Bridge, but I'm just going to do webhook endpoint. Now I do not have this app live yet, right? I still need to deploy it, and that's what I'm going to be doing right now. But before I do that, I need to make sure that we capture these events. Make sure that we capture these events from Stripe and provision the order. And so it worked for a minute and it finished processing. It basically created a new webhook helper, webhook endpoint right here that we need to give to Stripe once we deploy this app somewhere onto the cloud. And then we also need to have the new keys. So I'm going to go ahead and get my keys. I'm going to put in my keys. What keys do we need? These keys. Okay, so I'm going to come over here and I'm going to add these keys. Stripe secret key. This is my secret key. This is my test key and webhook secret, right? So we're going to go in here. And once we add the webhook, we're going to be given a secret. Now here it says that we can set up a local listener and use the Stripe CLI to simulate Stripe events in your local environment. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to copy this, run this, Stripe login, open this URL. Log confirm. Okay, allow Stripe to access. We're going to copy this. And now it will have access to it, which is perfect. And so now we can click over here and we can just forward the events to Stripe. Okay, and this is my webhook signing secret. And then we can trigger the events with the CLI. Okay, and so once I paste it in here, it's telling me what I need to do. I'm going to go ahead and forward it here. Okay, run that command. It's getting ready. Then it wants me to copy this secret key and webhook secret. Here's my webhook secret, and I need my secret key. Okay, so we have all that. Let's go ahead and run this app. Okay, and now it's telling me that we have this webhook running here, which is what it's listening for. Okay, and so now let's go ahead and complete the workflow. Okay, so it's generating these links, but they're kind of in a bad UI. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back here to this agent builder and this checkout, and I'm just going to have it do text. Publish that, my shopping cart. Okay, there's my shopping cart checkout. Okay, confirm. Okay, show me the checkout. Okay, and now it's displaying it correctly. So we can click that, and it's still per month. We need to fix that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and fill all of this out with fake information. This is test mode, and let's see what happens. Okay, and now let's go ahead and pay and subscribe to this thing and see if it works. Okay, thanks for subscribing. There we have it. All right, now let's go ahead and take a look at our webhooks. And as you can see, charge succeeded, payment, we're getting these events, and our system should know that good things have happened. Now, even though these were firing here, nothing happened here because it didn't really create the logic yet, right? So it says here right now, the webhook handler just returns the status. It does not call any real provisioning logic. So let's go ahead and get it to actually provision the stuff. So let's go ahead and give it database access so that it can figure out what to do. So I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to say database, project settings, and I'm going to give it all of this. This is our database, and this is our keys, right? I'm going to give it this key. Okay, add a real provisioning against your orders table, etc. Set this key. So let's go ahead and find this key. Okay, and so now it should mark the order that we have here as complete, right? We have these orders, we have the status, it's going to be marked as paid. And this is what we got back. So we need to copy this and we need to ask the codex if this is enough to provision it on our side. Is this enough? Because there's no metadata order ID. So we need to make sure that it's set. And what I'm doing here is I'm saying link it by the email, okay? Because there's only one order that's pending for the user, right? And so once the user pays, that same user, go ahead and provision that order. And so at this point, we're essentially matching the order that was just purchased to a user that has created it, because we're getting that users passed in there. But what we also want to do is we want to make sure that the order ID is being sent as well, so that we get this order ID back, so that we can mark the order as provision, so that we can ship out the order. And so I'm going to go in here to this checkout agent, and I'm going to ask it so that it sends order ID with the metadata. And what we're going to do is we're going to tell the agent to create this order in the database and send it along to Stripe, so that it has been created, so that we know which order to mark as provision. All right, so we did that. And so now we should have that in the instructions, okay? So the new order ID right here, okay? And so now let's go ahead and publish this, and we can go back here and we can take a look at our orders over here, okay? So here are the orders, right? And so it needs to create a new order, assign it to us, do all of that, and then set the status, and then send that information to the to Stripe, so that when we do the checkout, it's going to link back to that order. And so now let's go ahead and run this again. All right, here's the app. Let's see, show the shopping cart. Okay, so we have the shopping cart, and I want to say confirm. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and say this. All right, so now we have the order created. So if I go back here, guess what? I have a new order, and I have this order ID that I can link back to Stripe, okay? And so now all I need to do is click here. I'm going to go ahead and do a checkout, and we should have that order. See, this order is right here. Hopefully it's in the metadata as well, and we're going to see that in a second, because we are listening for callbacks. Okay, these callbacks over here, we're listening them right here. So we're going to be seeing new callbacks. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and fill this out. All right, now I'm going to click on Pay and Subscribe here in this test mode. I should get a callback right here. So now I'm getting my callbacks, okay, which is perfect. And now if I go over here, I should see a new event. Show new events, and I have some new events, okay? Okay, so now let's see if we have this metadata. Now my app is telling me that failed to mark order paid. Let's go ahead and debug that, see what the issue is. Okay, so it says fix the webhook provisioning bug, resolving the fallback order ID was mistakenly passing. So it was a little bug. Let's go ahead and restart the app, and let's go ahead and do this again. Okay, let's go ahead and do this again. All right, let's go ahead and run that. Okay, so now everything is 200. You see, everything is good. There's no 400. There's no bugs. Thank you. Go back here, show new events. And now everything is succeeded. So let's take a look at this one. Okay, so we have this right here. And now if we go back, we should see the order paid over here. You see now we've made full circle. We've created the order, and now we marked it paid over here. Okay, and this means that we can now ship the order to the customer. Okay, and so now if we go back to our agent, we can say track, and let's see what it says. Okay, it says here your latest order number 4 has been paid and is now something, but it's not visible because of this order status here, because we're using a widget that's not exactly configured for this. And so if I change that back, if I go to this tracking and I remove this, you see it says shipped. Actually, we should get it to change. Status just should be one word. Ensure that status is one word, and that should fix it. Okay, let's go ahead and publish this, and let's see if this works. Track order. Okay, there we have it. Order status paid. We have this crazy date format. We have the address. So as you can see, now it has been fixed correctly. Okay, and so at this point, we have the full circle app. We have our logic layer, we have the database, we have the backend, and we have the UI layer over here that supports authentication and sends all this data to our logic layer, to our agent builder layer. Now I was just about to wrap up the video, and then I realized this app is not complete without a real-time tracking, right? So like, where is my order? How many minutes to wait? How far is the courier, the delivery person, etc., etc. And so what I decided to do is implement that functionality. And the way that we implement it is by creating an edge function. So this was my first approach, create this edge function. And this is my edge function here. So if you take a look at the code, it uses Maxbox as its directions API, right? So we're using Maxbox, and as a result, we can send a just the order ID, and by passing in the order ID, so here's the order, we can just pass the order, and it will figure out where, who is responsible for the order, where the person is, because we are storing it in the database, right? So if we go back here, we go to our tables, right? We have driver locations table, and that tells us where the driver is, right? And this is obviously going to be getting updated. We have the driver ID, we have their current location. Now, by the way, this location is Midtown Manhattan, and you're going to understand why I'm telling you why that is important. And yeah, we have this basic drivers table, but we have this driver location because for customers, we have the address. So this customer, this is me getting the order. And as you can see, I'm 100 West Street, New York, and this is Lower West Side. Okay. So it's, it's whatever, 15 minutes away, 10 minutes away without any traffic, right? And the first time I did that, we ran into problems. And the reason we ran into problems is because this agent could not execute it, right? So if you go to this MCP, there's no way for this agent to execute, to invoke that function, right? There's no tool allowing it to invoke the edge function. It can list them, it can get them, but there's no way to invoke that, right? It can also deploy them, but it can't really invoke them. And so I gave it a prompt. I basically said, I click here, I said, hey, if the person wants to know, where their order is, go ahead and invoke it. And it had problems invoking it. And so for the next solution, I came up with basically, I told Codex to implement a Postgres function, right? So it's telling me the stock Supabase MCP server using cannot call edge function. It only lists, reads, deploys them. There's no invoke tool exposed, so the agent literally has no way to hit that compute ATA, which is that function. And so as a result, I said, go ahead and add a pure SQL fallback that the MCP can call. And this is a pure function. We're not using APIs anymore. We're just calculating the distance, a rough distance from two coordinates. And as a result, we can simply pass in the order ID, and then this function is called ETA for order, right? Because we have this function here. So if we come back over here, we can go to the database, and we have this function over here. Okay, and this is this ETA for order. And so if we select that, you can see that it has this declare stuff, all of this stuff. And then all we need to do is pass in the order ID, and it calculates everything. It calculates the duration, assuming 30 kilometers an hour for like average traffic, maybe even a scooter, an e-bike. Some of them can go up to 30 kilometers an hour. Most of them are like 25 kilometers an hour. And so assuming that, it can calculate all of that, and it can tell you where the person is. And so as a result, I went back to this agent and I wrote a prompt that looks something like this. If the person wants to know, if the person needs to know, how much time to wait for the order, or how far is the delivery person, go ahead and execute this. In fact, I got it here, right? So if we scroll down, here's the agent. Use execute SQL to select, etc. And I basically told it this, right? And now if you come over here and we go to this agent here and we execute a prompt something like this, check my delivery ETA for order 4 and tell me the distance and time remaining, it's going to execute that SQL and tell us exactly where the order is. Okay, so let's wait. And there you have it. It's approximately 3,000 meters away, which is 3.6 kilometers, which is about 2 something miles. And it's 437 seconds, roughly 7 minutes remaining. Okay, and then it has this. And obviously you can prompt it to give you in kilometers. Tell me in kilometers. Tell me in miles. Tell me in miles, and give me an ETA just in time. So something like this, and it should tell us. Okay, so there you have it, 2.26 miles, 7.3 minutes, which is just over 7 minutes. So delivery is about 2.26 miles away, etc., etc. And obviously you can tell the prompt to give you just in miles or kilometers. or depending on where you're at. All right. And so now we've come full circle. We have real-time delivery based on a function that the tool executes. Okay. So remember this diagram here, right? We have these tools that are connected to this. And so one of these tools is the Supabase DB tools that it executes. Okay. And one of those tools is the invoke functions. Okay. So it's not auth, it's actually, part of Supabase DB tools, right? It's SQL queries and auth calls. So in this case, it's a SQL query. Okay. And so that's connected to this. And this part is actually connected to order check-in. It's actually not here, but it's kind of like one of these. Okay. And so as a result, we've come full circle. And now the user can ask for their order stats and see where the order is. And so now if you guys want to see the prompt and you want to kind of play around with this, go ahead and join our amazing Patreon community. I'm going to be making the prompt available there so that you guys can experiment with building the UI for these agents. And you can go ahead and build it for my agent, or you can design your own agents. I'm going to be making all of this available in our amazing Patreon community. So thanks a lot for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.